Colin, Nate called out, grabbing Colin's arm. He swung him around. You cannot arrest her on suspicion of murder when all you have is the statement of a woman who threatened to blackmail the colonel, and you just stopped the colonel from talking to the commander-in-chief. But I have the statement of the victim, Colin protested, meeting Nate's eyes. A judge who has been suspected of shady activity. Dad returned, catching up to Colin, Nate and me. The fact that you are believing said judge over 2 decorated Freedom Alliance officers and the head of the IIB is outrageous, not to mention, you just crossed the line when you took her let. The president is going to be so upset. Let him do what he thinks is his job. While he has got me locked up on the word of Judge Valentine, I told them, looking at Dad, then Nate, the real shooter is on the loose. My gun hasn't been fired nor my backup, and my hands don't have residue on them, and she was shot with a .38, which I do not own. Nate stepped aside from the group and called what sounded like General Graham. I raked my eyes around the group and persisted, watching Colin's officers bag evidence, dust for fingerprints and photograph the scene. All he has is that note that was on her person, which he doesn't know if she actually wrote, or if the shooter did. He hasn't even fingerprinted it yet. It is still in his hand. He accused a general of tampering with IIB property, and has disrespected his superior officers, and this is not the first time. It will, however, be the last. I shrugged my shoulders. This is what he does. He judges everyone else fairly until he has the undeniable proof, except me. I've kept him because Joey has begged me to, but... Nate walked over to me just as Colin's let chimed, followed by General Graham to Major Colin Vincent. I shook my head and required of Nate, you really tattled to Graham about Colin arresting me? Peak, it is unnecessary. He has a note on the victim, which does not make sense, unless she inflicted the wound herself. How would she know she was going to get shot? If she did, there has to be more people she upset beside you and Ace, and if he arrests you, he needs to arrest Ace because she is listed on the document as well. Can one of you call Fireball and tell him his mother has been shot, and she is in the hospital? I questioned, looking over at Nate, and call the president and find out what she needs before she sends every agent in the area to find out where I am. Johnny already said I worried her. I could hear Colin arguing with Graham about his so-called evidence. I shook my head. But, General, with all due respect, she is interfering with my investigation, Colin complained. Yes, I understand she is my superior. I know that I have done this before. I don't feel I am getting the respect I deserve. Respect goes both ways, and the crew is always commenting how I let her get away with murder, like with, I understand that, sir, but... He has seriously lost his ever-loving mind, Nate remarked, putting his arm around me, talking to a general like that. If anyone else treated me the way he does, I would have transferred them by now. I have wanted to so many times, I admitted, laying my head on his shoulder, but your sister keeps talking me out of it. She keeps begging me not to separate him from her and their twins. I love your sister. I do. She is my best female friend, but I cannot put up with his disrespect any longer. I agree. I was surprised you put up with him this long. He was an excellent agent on his other posts. Why is he like this here? He doesn't know when his investigations are going to turn into one of our cases. This is the shooting of a prominent judge, I reasoned, watching as the conversation between General Graham and Colin became more intense. This is probably going to become an IIB case. I just don't think he knows his place here. The boundaries are blurred. Colin came over to me and undid the cuffs. You are free to go, he snarled, handing me back my let. General Graham wants you to call him, and effective immediately, I am resigning my commission. You still have 2 years on your tour, I warned, taking my let from him. Resigning your commission before it is done is considered abandonment, going AWOL. Graham and I have a solution. You take a day or two and think about what you want to do. Talk it over with Joey, then get back to me when you want to hear the solution. In the meantime, take the next few days off. When Colin walked away in a huff, Nate ushered me back into VIP Lima. I settled onto the stool near the bar that separated the kitchen and the living area. Before calling Graham, I put my let on my wrist and pressed my thumb to the middle of it, saying, Colonel Masters to Fireball Mahoney. Fireball barked, Lucky Star, YR. Your mother was shot outside of VIP Lima. Dad went on a walk and found her. She is in the hospital. And, Fireball questioned. There is no love lost between us. You know that. I don't want her dead, but. Fireball, I am informing her family. Your mother had a letter on her person, I advised him, looking over as Nate cracked an egg on the side of a frying pan in the kitchen, that stated if anything happened to her, Ace and I should be the main suspects, and per usual, Colin only wants to look at that piece of evidence. What became Fireball's response? Long story, but if Nate brings you the overseer, I persisted, continuing to watch Nate crack more eggs and scramble them. Is it possible for you to see why a piece of footage is blurry? There are a multitude of reasons, Fireball expressed, but after the kids go to school and preschool, I can come look at it. Ace is going to drop the little ones off at preschool on her way to her shift. Thanks. I will alert the preschool that she will be dropping them off. I grabbed my Quan pad and sent Mia, Lizzie and Danny's teacher's Ace's picture. Can you call Johnny and tell him we located Dad? Already did, Fireball confirmed right before disconnecting the communique. I didn't have time to do anything else before I heard General Graham to Colonel Masters. I put my thumb to my comlet and greeted Colonel Masters to General Graham. I am done with Major Vincent's behavior, Peak. This is not the first time he has tried to arrest you on suspicion of attempted murder, and his behavior as of late is just unacceptable. I know that we waited to take action because of Joey, Graham decided, but I am putting our plan in place immediately. You will be receiving your new security chief. Sun will be in charge until she gets there. We are going to try this out for 6 months. Thank you for compromising, I returned, catching Nate look back at me, because as angry as I am at him right now, I couldn't let Joey be separated from him again. At least not on a regular basis. I understand you are helping your dad. The president and I have been worried, Graham broached. Yes, I am. Fireball, Ace and Nate are handling things at home while I take my shifts from Dad's quarters. On the footage of the overseer where Judge Valentine was shot, I explained, spying Dad and Nate carrying plates of food to the table, it is blurry. I'm going to have Fireball look at it, and see if he can determine what happened and if we can restore it. In the meantime, can you get me the copy of the footage from the vault, so we can see who shot Judge Valentine? I will get it to you as soon as I can. Keep me updated. I'm going to call Colin in 1 hour to give him our decision. I will be reassigning him shortly, Graham advised me before ending the transmission. I saw Nate and Dad bringing glasses, plates and orange juice to the table. Nate motioned me over. Colin's reassignment, Nate prompted, setting the plates on the end of the table. He is being assigned to the Kennedy on the front lines. Unless the Kennedy gets called on a mission outside of the war, he will be able to travel back after his shifts to be with Joey and the boys. I informed him, pulled out a chair and sank into it, or since the Kennedy now hosts families and has a school, Joey and the boys could live with him on the Kennedy. Their security chief has been wanting to move to the Liberty, and is an excellent officer. Former IIB. I picked up a plate and passed one to Dad, then one to Nate. I love my sister, Nate started, taking my plate to pile eggs and toast on it before handing it back, then did the same with Dad's, but I feel like she and Colin have never had the opportunity to grow as a family away from us. He filled his own plate and looked over at me. I know you love her, but if she decides to take the boys and move with him, are you going to be okay with that? She is close enough to still have girls' nights. I stabbed some of my eggs and put them in my mouth. I am okay either way. If she leaves with him, I am going to have to find someone else to head the onboard school. I have a person in mind, but she has been resistant about joining us on the Liberty. I bit the eggs off my fork. Dad picked at his eggs, putting pieces into his mouth. Who is Colin's replacement? I answered, gathering up more of my eggs. Thea Jordan. I put them in my mouth. She was an excellent agent. I was disappointed when she decided to leave to focus on her military career, Dad returned, pausing to pour himself a glass of orange juice, but I can understand it after what happened. I nodded and remarked, handing Dad my glass, she was my second choice. I wanted Asia Ricks. She is the best security chief in the Freedom Alliance. Asia wanted to keep work/life balance, and thought being on board with her brother would disrupt that. We ate in silence for a few moments. I noticed Dad didn't eat a lot of his food, and he rubbed his head. Clearly the consequences for his actions. I didn't know if I did it, Dad interrupted our thoughts. tracing the top of his glass with his finger. I was standing over her, and, for the briefest of moments, I wondered if I blacked out and shot her. I didn't even know her that well, only knew her reputation, and I had no idea she threatened Jessa. I know, in my normal state, I am not capable of that unless I have to, but I didn't know in the altered state. I want to stop drinking, but I don't think I can. He turned to me and said with grave deliberation, "This is my default. I drank for so many years when you were growing up. Not to this intensity." "I know," I assured him, taking his hand. "I know when you feel out of control or things are too emotional, you resort to drinking. It was my MO too. I suspect you still feel guilty about not getting me away from Harrison. It is the same way I would feel if something like that happened to one of my children. I see this eating you up, and I can't do anything to help you. I can only stand by you." "Brad," Nate interjected, watching Dad's face turn to him, "you mean everything to Jessa, but you also mean a lot to me, our children, Fireball, Ace and all of the IIB family. We are here to help in any way we can. You have been more of a parent to me than my own." Dad grabbed his hand as well. "I don't say this enough. You are good for my daughter. I am glad she married you. I know you will do right by her and the kids, no matter how many of them she rescues." He looked back at me. "I think your need to rescue all the suffering children stems from not being able to get away from Harrison.